Hey guys, welcome to my November 16th DVD update. I talk about all the DVDs and Blu-rays I've gotten over the last 2 weeks or so. Like I always say, if you enjoy these updates, definitely give this video a thumbs up. Leave me a comment below. Let me know what you thought about the titles that I checked out and any future titles that I should check out. Now, the first one I got from Scream Factory, or Shout Factory's. Actually, I think this is just from the Shout Factory line, and it's George Romero's Knightriders, because this actually isn't a horror movie. It's actually I think one of the only, at least one of the few. I'm pretty sure it might be the only commercial movies that George Romero ever did that was not at all a horror movie. And it's basically this movie about Ed Harris, and he kind of runs this medieval Viking kind of festival thing that travels around where people go and do jousting and reenactments and things like that on motorcycles and try and joust each other off. And Tom Savini is in this movie. I feel like this is a movie too that really showed that Tom Savini really was a pretty good actor, but this movie was so hardly seen that I feel like it took him until Dusk Till Dawn for people to really start to see him more as an actor. At least that's what I kind of noticed, because I think Tom Savini, in my opinion, really steals the show and everything he's in. But this movie is basically about this kind of festival that travels around, and this movie too, even when George Romero talks about it, kind of says that if you're a fan of his zombie movies, you're probably not going to like this one. If you can, you have to, it's basically if you're looking for that kind of a movie or that type of film, it's not that at all. It's very long. It's 2.5 hours long. I really understood exactly what he's trying to do with this, trying to kind of make a point about this kind of different type of lifestyle, and so many people pop up in this movie. That's one of the coolest things to me about it, was a lot of the people from Dawn of the Dead. Ken Foree is in this, Joe Pilato is in this, so a whole bunch of people that you've seen kind of play the cast members in small parts throughout the movie. Ken Foree has a pretty decent role in this. It's funny too, there's even a scene in this one there's the character who has the tattoos on his face, and his scene kind of reminds me of the scene in Day of the Dead talking about the 200-mile tombstone. I don't know, it kind of, you could tell that this was the predecessor with his writing and stuff. And the thing that's interesting too was this was made with a deal when they made Creepshow, Knightriders, and Day of the Dead. And he put all of his money into Creepshow and Knightriders, and I've seen a number of interviews when he's like, if only I would have put the money into Day of the Dead, I could have made the original script, although I love Day of the Dead. I enjoyed this movie for what it is, but it is very, very long. It's a little bit slow, but looks really good on Blu-ray. It has interviews on here with Tom Savini and George Romero talking about the movie. I think if you want to see something for George Romero that's very different, that's not at all horror, and that's very well written, but like I said, just a little long, I would definitely check it out. But I just go into it, it's not in the slightest bit a horror movie. Just know that with it. The next one, this one is from Scream Factory, Shout Factory's Scream Factory line, and it's Eve of Destruction. This is one that I had never heard of before. This is sort of like a female Terminator film, and it's this woman who made, kind of developing these kind of cyborgs, it's kind of based off of this woman who developed it, and they took the cyborg, woman out into the train, the subway, to see how she would react, and something ends up happening, and she ends up malfunctioning and kind of is on the loose. And it's Gregory Hines' character with the person who developed her, the same woman who developed the robot after her look, going after the woman, trying to find her. This one was an okay one. It was made by Orion. So Orion, it was made, I believe, in 1991, and then didn't come out for a little bit later, I think. Because if you guys, some people who remember or followed Orion's films, Orion was having this bankruptcy time. So they made Clifford and a lot of movies, even RoboCop 3 during this during the bankruptcy, and a whole lot of movies were kind of held up and not released. One thing I do want to say though is I really like that Shout Factory 2 puts the original logo on the beginning of these movies. They keep the Orion symbol, and that kind of stuff that you don't really see. A lot of companies that release something that when they license a movie, they take that off. And I like that they kind of keep it the way it exactly was seen. Movie looks really good though, but it's a very different kind of cyborg film. There were some pretty cool scenes in the cities and things like that. Not an absolutely perfect film, but I kind of liked it. You could tell though the woman who was playing the cyborg though was trying so hard to cover up her accent. It kept slipping out. out here and there. But I kind of liked it. It definitely is one I would check out if you like kind of RoboCop and those kind of movies that they made that were kind of similar stories and things like that. The next one from Warner Brothers is We're the Millers, and this one has a cool, particular cover of them switching between their made-up looks, that when they were playing the part of the Millers and the way they really looked. And this movie is basically about Jason Sudeikis, and he's this drug dealer and ends up helping Emma Roberts' character because he sees her. She's about to get, like, these kind of thugs in the alley are kind of, messing around with her, and he goes out there to try and help her, and then the thugs end up stealing Jason Sudeikis' weed, and he ends up, without all the money, out all the marijuana and stuff, so then he has to go back to his drug dealer, who, he sells for, played by Ed Harris, and Harris is like, well, you're going to have to get me my money, and, you're going to have to do something, so he ends up sending him to Mexico to bring back all this marijuana, and he ends up coming up with this scheme of getting an RV and getting Jennifer Aniston's character, who's a stripper, Emma Roberts' character, who's kind of like lives on the street, and this weird kid that lives in the building with him, to play a family, like a normal family, with them going off to like on a family trip to Mexico, and kind of having that be their cover to bring back all the marijuana. This is kind of a fun road film, though, about them going there and then them trying to get back with all the stuff and kind of all the problems they run into along the way. I thought this one, to me, was one of my favorite comedies in a while. Like, at least one of the top comedies this year, next to This Is the End, which in my opinion is one of the other ones, and one of the other ones I'm going to talk about in this video too. The To-Do List is another one that I really liked this year. This one has a bunch of different features on this, 45 minutes of new extras. This also has the extended cut, which is 8 minutes longer, outtakes, deleted scenes. I would recommend this one a lot. I thought this was a really funny one. The next one is a new Superman film, which is it doesn't have anything to do with the last one, Superman Returns. I thought Superman Returns was okay. I don't remember, really disliking it. I remember it had a lot of kind of mixed opinions. I thought it was okay. I thought Brendan Routh really did look, though, like Christopher Reeves, and had, a really similar look. That was kind of, the most thing he had going for him. The new one, though, I thought was pretty good. The stuff that I liked about the new one the most was the opening, the origin aspect of it, when they're on the planet, and the bringing Superman to Earth and all that kind of aspect. Zack Snyder directed this one. He did 300, and he did the Dawn of the Dead remake, and I always like his style, and he's really good at doing really big visual scenes. I thought all the stuff, though, when it got back to Earth, I kind of wish they had a little bit more with Superman when he was a kid. They kind of did a lot of it in flashbacks, and I kind of wish there was a little bit more of that, because I really like the stuff with young Superman with Kevin Costner and his mother. And that character, that stuff to me was some of my favorite stuff. The one guy actor in it too, Michael Shannon, did a really good job. I'm not great with the character names. I think it was Jennifer Zerg or General Zod or something. I'm terrible at character names. That's why I don't mention them much. But to me, though, I really do think this was a pretty good Superman movie. Of course, not as good as the original ones, but I would definitely recommend watching this one. I really did like it. Like I said, though, the origin aspect of this movie was definitely my favorite stuff. There's also a 3D one of this available. Has a whole bunch of features on here. With Zack Snyder, you can do a function on here where you watch the movie with Zack Snyder, and he kind of pops in and says different things about the movie, and then some featurettes about the Krypton, the planet, and things like that in the movie. I would definitely check this out if you like the Superman movies. I'm really looking forward to seeing the next one with the Batman coming into the film. The next one is The Hobbit, the extended edition, which is the new Hobbit comes out. I believe it's December. I think it's pretty soon. I don't remember exactly for sure, but it's in this really cool case, this black case inside of it. It kind of slips in behind this one. But The Hobbit, though, I really did like this one. It's it's the prequels to the Lord of the Rings story. And it's in 3 parts. So there's still, the second part coming out, and then the third one. This extended edition is about, I believe it's like 13, 14 minutes longer. But the main new things about this, it's got a whole bunch of new features on here. The main stuff is the long extended journey, which is like the chronicles of making the film through the pre-production and photography and basically all the aspects of the film. And then as well as a thing on here, Return to Middle Earth, talking about the characters and things like that. Don't want to go into too much detail with the film, though. I really did like the film. I don't know if I'm going to see the new one, though, in that 24 or 32 frames thing. I don't remember. I didn't really like that thing. I don't feel like too many people love that frame rate thing, and I feel like I haven't seen anything else use that, and I don't know if anything else will. It kind of was a weird thing to it. It was an interesting way to see it, but I feel like I'm going to see the next one just in, regular 3D. But, this is basically, like I said, it's the origin story, and it's with the hobbits going to, basically, the quest to get back their castle from a dragon. To me, though, I really enjoy these films. I actually like this film a little bit more than I like the Lord of the Rings film. So this one I would definitely check out, especially for this is the extended cut, and as well as it has all the new features on this one. The next one from Universal is The World's End, which is for, Edgar Wright's new film, starring Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. And it's about a group of these friends who, when they were younger, the end of high school, went on this kind of pub crawl, going around to all the bars, where they lived. And the plan was to basically drink around and go to every single bar and get a pint at every single bar. And that was basically what it was. And they ended up getting too drunk and never able to, complete the pub crawl. So years later, Simon Pegg's character, his life is kind of a mess. He's really not doing anything. And he wants to get his friends back together and try and conquer it again. And it's basically about them going back to their town. When they get there, there's some very peculiar things going on in the town. The people seem strange. The people that should remember who they are don't seem to have any recollection of them. It's basically just something weird going on. I don't think this is any spoiler because you see in the trailers that there's something with the people, and that's all I'm kind of going to get into. The people there's something weird about them, and they pretty much have to, Simon Pegg is not going to accept that even though things are going wrong, he will not accept that they're not going to complete this. So the idea with the movie is, will they complete this as this is all happening and as this is all going on, or will they not be able to complete the pub crawl? To me, I really enjoyed this one. It's a good, they kind of call this a trilogy next to, Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz. Hopefully he does another film with all of them together, Nick Frost and Simon Pegg. I really think they're funny together. This has a bunch of different features on here too. Deleted scenes, outtakes, commentaries, all that kind of stuff. To me, though, if you love, Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead, this is definitely one to check out, especially if you like Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. To me, this was really funny. I really like the outcome to this movie. Would kind of be interested in seeing, a follow-up to it. I doubt there will be, but I like how everything kind of goes. It's just an interesting end to it. Would definitely check this one out. The next one from Disney is Disney's Planes, and this is not from Pixar. This is from the, it's basically the characters of Cars are kind of like in the background. They're not really, the characters from Cars aren't in it, but you kind of see the cars that look like the characters from Cars. The thing that was kind of, the main reason I was interested in seeing this one was because Sinbad did a voice in it, and he has a pretty decent part in the movie. This is actually, I think, like the first movie that Sinbad has done, that was a theatrical movie. This is, I think, like Good Burger, I think it's been a really long time. So it's really happy to see him in this. This is basically about a plane, played by Dane Cook, voiced by Dane Cook, who's this, crop dusting around, in this farm community, and he has this dream of becoming a racing plane. And it's basically about him, trying to accomplish his dreams of, having that happen. And like I said, it's done by Disney, so it's not Pixar. So the animation is good, but it doesn't have like all the details and things like that Pixar's animation does. So to me, it's not as good as like a Pixar one, but it still definitely is fun. Definitely more for kids, though, I would say. The voices are kind of different too, because it's kind of weird. There's like Dane Cook is like someone you wouldn't almost think of, though, in this kind of a movie. It has, though, deleted scenes in here, and then a countdown on the flyers, talking about the flyers in the movie. But this really definitely was one I would check out, if you like those kind of films. The next one, this is one that I was, is definitely one of my top favorite movies of the year. And I feel like not a lot of people saw this one. And it's too bad that they didn't. And it's from Sony. It's the To-Do List. And this is the Audrey Plus film that she stars in. It's basically about the kind of one thing a lot of people didn't understand was the casting in this movie was all done on purpose. They got everybody who was in their late 20s, early 30s, and things like that to actually play the high school and college students. They kind of give it that 80s 90210 kind of feel to it, which to me really worked. I like that. I like those kind of jokes. To me, though, Bill Hader really stole the show in this. His wife directed this film, so I feel like she really used him to totally the best of his abilities and really let him. I don't know. I just felt like he was really good in this. It's this girl, though, who's graduating from high school, and she's pretty much realized that she hasn't really done much of anything. Hasn't really done, especially like experimented or done anything like that. So she comes up with this list to do before the summer is over of all these kind of weird things, a lot of sexual things. And this is back in the 80s, so they don't really know about, you can't really search things on the internet. So it's kind of her trying to figure out what everything means. And, you know, she ends up getting a job at a pool during the summer. It's about this boy that she likes, and there's a great spoof on the Caddyshack scene in the pool in this. I don't know, this to me, though, was a really funny, very raunchy movie, too, that took it pretty far, which I liked. You don't see too many movies that's, you know, based about a female that kind of go this far, and I like that. To me, I think this is definitely one I would definitely recommend people check out. Oh yeah, and it has a whole bunch of other features on this one as well, with, you know, stuff with the director, the gag reel, and a deleted scene on here, and a commentary with Bill Hader and his wife. Definitely check this out. And the next one from Cinedigm is Farscape, the complete series on Blu-ray. The show looks really good on Blu-ray. I believe it was released a couple years back on Blu-ray, but this is the brand new collection of it. And this is a show that was produced by the Jim Henson Company for Sci-Fi Channel. So it has all those kind of classic Jim Henson kind of Dark Crystal kind of vibe to it, with the Muppets kind of characters, you know, the puppets, and kind of the really cool alien kind of creature things in this. To me, I really enjoyed this a lot more than a lot of other kind of sci-fi shows, because it kind of has a lot more humor to it and kind of doesn't take itself too serious with a lot of aspects of it, and really has some pretty cool music, and the opening's really cool in this. But the basic idea is about this this scientist who ends up, an astronaut who ends up on this mission. It's basically going to be a mission that would be very quick, and he ends up going into this wormhole and getting sucked into somewhere out into space. And he ends up, it's basically him getting, accidentally killing this guy in a ship, and end up getting taken into this ship, when it's basically about him with the people on the ship, their kind of adventures and the things that are going on with this group of, these kind of people coming after him because the one guy, because he killed his brother by accident, so it's him kind of hunting them and trying to find them throughout the show. I don't know, though. I would definitely recommend this one. It has I believe it's 86 episodes on here, a whole bunch of features on this, commentaries on 35 of the episodes, deleted scenes. To me, though, this is a really fun show, and all the seasons are in individual, cases per each season. And I believe, too, they're all going to be available separately as well, in the new editions. I believe pretty soon they're coming out, but this one came out first. Now, the next one's from CBS Paramount is Star Trek, which is kind of a very similar show, would say would definitely inspired Farscape. Which Farscape, though, was from 1999 to 2003. And this is the complete fifth season of Star Trek: The Next Generation. Now, I've talked about a number of these in the past. To me, this season really looks even better to me than some of the other ones on Blu-ray. I feel like the contrast levels on this season look really good. Very good dark levels on this show. I remember, I think it was the third season or something, people were saying the company didn't do as good of a job with the effects, and they got a new one for the later seasons. But this season looks really good on Blu-ray. They do such a good job, and if you don't know, the whole show basically has to be re-put back together again because it was edited on, basically VHS non-HD. So they have to go from the original film negatives and recut the show back together again, redo the special effects, and update them, and basically put the whole thing together again. And this show has a bunch of episodes too that I love, because me, when I talk about the show, I always love it when they go to planets and things like that. There's a whole bunch of ones on this one. It has a conversation on here with about the music, a new feature about the the making of remembering the show, auto commentaries on a number of episodes, deleted scenes, and a gag reel, which I always love seeing a gag reel on this show. show, because it kind of shows you that they were kind of just having fun with it. Also have Star Trek Unification, which is also on this set. The Unification is at the episode where Mr. Spock comes back on the show, for one episode, and it's him, basically Captain Kirk is trying to... No, what Captain Picard... See, I'm screwing all the names up. Captain Picard is trying to find Mr. Spock, and it's pretty cool, though, to see both of them together again in the show. But it's edited into one full movie. They put the credits together at the beginning. But definitely check these out, especially if you're a fan of the show. The next one from MPI. Now, I'm not going to lie, I do not know how to say this, which is a shame, because this is, to me, one of my favorite vampire movies that I've seen in a long time. It's like... Byzantium or something like... They never say it in the movie. It's like the name of the hotel in the movie. But I'm just going to show it very close so you can see it if you guys want to check this out, because I absolutely love this one. This was, like, seriously one of the coolest vampire movies that I've seen. Like, I thought that Kiss the Damned one was really good. This, to me, is better. I don't know. This was... Every so often I watch a movie that I really loved, and this was like one of them, like especially like this. I don't know, I absolutely loved everything about this. But it's basically about these two girls. I don't want to get into too much about them, what their relationship is, because you kind of find that out later in the movie. I don't think the back says, I don't know though. It's about these two girls, and they're living in this kind of going around. They're vampires, and the one is, drinking the blood from old people and things like that. The other one acts as a prostitute to end up killing these men to drink their blood. And there's the things you find out about everything too, and you have to really pay attention when you find out that what everything means was amazing. The main girl in this was from The Host, and just in that movie Violet and Daisy, which I talked about in the last update. But they're in this like kind of beach community town, and I believe it's in England. And they're going around, and the one ends up meeting this guy that she starts to like, but they're kind of hiding out in this old kind of hotel that the girl who's like prostitutes herself ends up meeting this guy and kind of using him to hide out in the hotel. I don't know, just some really great sequences in this. Some great sequences with blood in the waterfalls, and kind of a totally different origin to a vampire movie. It's not, with the fangs. It's with this, it's like a claw that comes out of their fingers. And just a really different take on the whole thing. It's not the typical where vampires can't go out in the sun. It's a whole kind of reinventing the entire vampire genre. And the one girl, who's from The Host, I, for the life of me, can never figure out how to say her name. But she always, since she's 200 years old, she gets these visions of the past. And, kind of when she goes to certain areas, she kind of remembers things. I don't know. This is one of those movies that I would highly recommend. Like when I talk about like my top movie of the update, this is the one. Check the trail out for this one. The kid and the girl, the boy that the one falls in love with was in that movie Antiviral, and he was so cool in this. I mean, just check this out. The next one is another one that I really liked from Welgo USA. And it's The Seasoning House. And it started off a little rough in the beginning. Like the first 20 minutes I was kind of worried. I'm like, I don't know if this is going to be great. But then it really picked up. It's about during the war, I don't know which war it was supposed to have been. It might be almost like a futuristic war, like one that could happen now, because the movie doesn't really have a date to it. You really can't date the movie. But during the war, these kind of soldiers end up kidnapping these girls and kind of prostituting them. And the one girl has this kind of birthmark on her face, and she's deaf, so she can't speak. And the guy who kind of prostitutes these girls ends up kind of falling for and kind of using her to help basically feed the girls, clean them and things like that. But she's kind of there while this is all going on and kind of seeing what all the soldiers are doing. It's really terrible what's going on, but it's basically, in the beginning of the movie, the girl who's deaf ends up seeing her family killed by these soldiers. The main soldier in this was the guy from Dog Soldiers and Event Horizon. He's very, very, really good, always been good in everything. And it's basically when she sees the guy, it's a revenge film, which becomes extremely intense with her kind of hiding out in this house, crawling around the walls. You know me, I always love movies like Bad Ronald and things like that, and people under the stairs, kind of crawling around the wall. I love those kind of movies. And I'm sure people on Facebook have seen that post about that family that discovered the steps behind the bookcase. I loved that. I love hearing that kind of crazy stuff. But this really was a good one, a really good revenge movie with a seriously fulfilling ending to what happens to one person in it. And the next one from Magnolia is Prince Avalanche. This is from the director of Pineapple Express and stars Emile Hirsch and Paul Rudd. It's basically about them. They're Paul Rudd's, his girlfriend. Basically, he takes in her brother, who's kind of a loner, not really doing anything, played by Emile Hirsch, during this job they have during the summer, which is basically out in the middle of this kind of, I think it's in Texas, where they had a terrible fire. This takes place in the 80s, where a whole area was kind of destroyed. It's a very sad, ghostly feeling movie, too, because there's so much terrible things that have happened to this whole area. And their job is to paint the lines on the highway. Every time now I'm driving and stuff, I look at the lines, and you kind of got to think of this movie now. Every time you drive and look at the lines. But they basically are painting the lines. It's basically about them the whole time, pretty much out there. Kind of the problems and their kind of relationships problems with Paul Rudd, with Emile Hirsch's sister, and kind of they're having their problems, and Emile Hirsch is having all these kind of problems going on. And kind of the people that they meet out there. There's this one guy who's always giving them liquor and things like that. And there's just a real, kind of sad, ghostly, kind of depressed, empty feeling vibe to the movie, which really does work for it. And you can tell it's a very small movie. They definitely filmed this very guerrilla style. It's very few people involved in it. Just a real small film. As I like these kind of things, and a really good character study about both of them, which I really would definitely recommend this. Like I said, though, it's not like a movie where there's a whole ton of things happening. It's more about them out there, and Emile Hirsch's character doing all these weird things, like painting his shoes with this toxic paint and stuff. I don't know, I really enjoyed this. The next ones from Blue Underground are Maniac Cop 2 and Maniac Cop 3. Now, Maniac Cop 3, William Lustig did direct it, but then kind of another person came in because the production was all screwed up, and William Lustig kind of hates the movie. I don't want to lie, I didn't like it either. I mean, I didn't like it at all. I had a hard time watching it. The second one was so good. The second one stars, Robert Davi and Claudia Christensen, who was in Adam Rifkin's show Look, and a number of different movies. And basically, though, it's about, the character from the Maniac Cop film, which was this guy who was a cop. He was a guy who ended up getting framed for something that he didn't do, and ends up getting revenge by dressing as a cop and kind of making it so everyone kind of fears the cops, and all these bad things are going on. In this movie, it's the guy, his back, you see him die in the beginning of the movie, and he's back, and Robert Davi is kind of trying to figure out what's going on, and he kind of believes that it's him. To me, though, William Lustig runs Blue Underground, so he did such an amazing job cleaning this movie up, especially cleaning up the other one as well. Like I said, though, I just don't like this one. To me, it just wasn't really very good. I mean, I don't feel bad saying that, because William Lustig, who made it, doesn't like it either. So I'm not worried about saying that. I always like to try and find good things about everything that I watch. But to me, though, Maniac Cop 2 was really cool. It has, too, a really good documentary on here. It's about I think 30, 40 minutes, talking about the movie. And on the third movie, the coolest thing on that was actually the documentary talking about all the problems that they had on it. But these are really cool 80s, real violent those kind of movies, which I really enjoy these kind of things. The next one from Kino is Nosferatu, which I had actually never seen the original one. Well, I had seen clips and things like that. Every time I thought of Nosferatu, I always thought of that episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark, when the kid ended up working in this kind of failing movie theater, and they kind of made their own version of Nosferatu, when the character comes out of the movie and then hunts the people at the theater. Man, that was such a good show. When you really think about, kid shows and things like that, it's too bad that things like that don't exist. There is the Dead Time Stories. I meant to tell you guys about that show. That's a pretty cool Nickelodeon show. It's kind of a throwback to that stuff. But Nosferatu, though, looks really good on Blu-ray. You'd be surprised for a movie that's from 1922 or in 1922, looks pretty decent. And when I'm watching it, though, I think of kind of Rob Zombie when he did that Living Dead Girl video, because he kind of took the style of this with kind of the matte around the picture and the things like that. But they also color tinted this movie, so they gave it the blue, and the reason they did that was because the black and white, they filmed it during the day, and you could tell really bad that it was. So they did that to kind of try and cover it up. But the movie's basically about this guy who ends up talking, it's a silent film, so it's, you're reading it and things like that. But this guy who ends up going to see Count Dracula or Nosferatu's character, and you know, to basically talk to him about buying this big house. When he gets there, he ends up getting trapped, and Nosferatu ends up going to get his wife. You know, that's this kind of, you know, trying to get back. And there's these great scenes on a boat, and they did a remake that Werner Herzog did of this, which was a pretty good one though. But this really creepy. Like when I think about this movie, it's kind of almost like, you know, I'm not a religious person at all, but I feel like if there was a devil, or if there is, who knows? But I feel like if he made a movie, it would be kind of like that, real creepy and peculiar. The next one, and this is one that people have told me about this a long time, and it's from Funimation, and it's Akira, which is one of like the most talked about, I would say, anime films. Has a real kind of Blade Runner kind of feel to it, and the one guy in it kind of reminded me of like an animated Paul Williams, the guy who's like sitting in this chair. Sorry if I'm, you know, sweating, but I have no fans on in here, and it's kind of getting hot outside again. But it's basically though about these kind of kids that end up stumbling upon some kind of a conspiracy thing going on in the government, and they end up, you know, the one friend ends up getting taken away, and it's kind of about mind control, and they kind of say the movie Chronicle borrowed kind of aspects of this. The movie looks really good though, like really cool 80s kind of anime, futuristic stuff. Some pretty cool music in it too, which was kind of, wasn't like synth, but it was kind of like beating drums and kind of weird noises and things like that. Would definitely check out this one out though. The next one I got from Image is I Am Zozo. I believe that's how you say it, Zozo. And this was actually shot in Super 8mm, which is kind of, I'm pretty sure, one of the first like big released movies I can think that was shot on this in years. They were even talking about in the features how kind of stressful it was shooting on that, because you can't look back on the stuff until it's developed, so you could basically be shooting with a whole roll when it doesn't come out at all. This is basically about these friends that end up going to this, the one dad's cabin to kind of just like have a vacation. They end up getting there, and then they end up finding this Ouija board, end up screwing around on it, and end up contacting this this, you know, entity which is called Zozo. And it's kind of a character, you know, entity that they say that a lot of people have contacted when they go, you know, go on Ouija boards and things like that. And it's not like this is not one of those kind of movies where it's like a lot of like, you know, like deaths and violent things and all that kind of stuff happening. It's more of a psychological film, but really works well with the 8mm, Super 8mm. It gives it a very cool vibe to it. But you can tell though, since it was shot on, you know, the 8mm, they kind of did a lot of it in like one takes, you know, one long shots, and not tons and tons of coverage, because it would be, I mean, insanely expensive to shoot like all the kind of covers every single way. But the way it was done was shot pretty well, and kind of gives it a creepy kind of vibe to it, where you can't really tell when this was made. There's not a whole lot to it, especially seeing something on that kind of film, which you don't see at all. It kind of doesn't give the movie any date. I thought it was pretty creepy and pretty well done. I would definitely recommend this one. The next one, and this is a show that I've been watching, I believe it's still on too, on True TV. This is from Warner Brothers. And it's the complete first season of Impractical Jokers. And this is a pretty fun show. It's about these four friends who basically, it's like a hidden camera show, and it's basically these challenges where they dare each other to do these certain things, and sometimes they have like an earpiece on, and the other guys are kind of telling them what to do. Like, for instance, they're on the street, and they have like this bullhorn, and the guy has to hold it to his mouth, and the friends are yelling things out. There's things like that when they go to Costco, and they have an earpiece, and they're checking people out, you know, in the checkout aisle, and then they tell them to say these terrible things to them, the customers, and if they don't say it, they end up getting a, you know, a thumbs down, and whoever ends up at the end of each episode with the least, you know, most times they end up failing these challenges, end up having to do this terrible thing at the end, and it's kind of like, all the kind of like embarrassing pictures. They have to do a speech in front of a whole bunch of people, things like that. But this is, you know, contains lead scenes on this, behind the scenes, and a thing on here talking about the stars of the show, as well as commentaries on some of the episodes. I think this is a pretty fun hidden camera show. It's one of those hidden camera shows too that goes a lot further than some of the things like the Betty White camera show, which is kind of more PG. This is more of an adult kind of humor, which I like. Hopefully True TV at some point puts out Hardcore Pawn, because that's a pretty fun one. Hardcore Pawn. Now, the last one from Arc Entertainment, which I watched last night, is the Naughty List. And this has Drake Bell, Sean Astin, and Matthew Lillard in it. It's basically about these two elves who end up they're kind of screwing around and end up, playing with these snowballs. And, they're supposed to be inside working and Christmas is coming. This is like a fun little family film. I think it was for Cartoon Network, but I might be wrong. And they end up, screwing around with these snowballs and end up screwing up the Christmas tree. And they end up being elves that end up getting put onto the naughty list. It's them as well as a reindeer, and they end up having to... 3 people who are on this naughty list have to end up doing all these kind of things to try and get back onto the good list, and before Christmas comes. Also, they end up screwing things up and getting people sick with this food they made because they had to, help them, and they may end up having to, they basically have to try and save Christmas as well. So it's kind of all these kind of problems with them. But I think this is a fun family film. I think a lot of kids would like this one. So that's pretty much all for this brand new Blu-ray DVD collection update. As I said, definitely give this video a thumbs up if you've enjoyed these updates, and I'll see you guys later.